Hey class, today we're going to be looking at the organelles of a cell. So we have three main questions here, or three main things to know. Be able to identify the 11 main organelles, and identifying them, you have a color sheet that you'll be able to do when you finish doing the notes. You also have a chart that you should fill out while you're doing these notes. Number two, be able to explain each of these 11 organelles and their functions. So you might not always have to explain them, but you need to be able to identify what they do, maybe in a matching situation or a multiple choice situation. So you need to know what they do. And then number three, what organelles do plants have that animals do not have, and what are their functions? Okay, so we have already covered the cell membrane and the nucleus in the last set of notes. So we're moving on from those to the rest of the organelles. And the first one here is the mitochondria. And you have probably at some point heard of the mitochondria. Most of these you will have heard of back from like 7th or 8th grade possibly. So this first one here, it's kind of shaped like a peanut. It has these little like inner layers inside that we will get to in chapter 7. And they deal with cell respiration and making energy in our bodies. So you can see a computer image there, and then this one is showing kind of an electron microscope look of what mitochondria will look like. These are where ATP is made, and just as a reminder, ATP is the energy molecule. See if I can get my pen to work. Doesn't seem to want to, just like in class, right? So ATP is the energy molecule. And it's called the powerhouse of the cell because it helps to make energy. So places that would have a whole lot of mitochondria are going to be your muscle cells, your heart, places that need energy and need to produce a lot of energy. Okay, the next organelle is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Key things here is it helps to make proteins, glycoproteins, and membranes. Membranes are cell membranes, so it helps to make those phospholipid bilayers. And what it'll do is it prepares them for export out of the cell. It is covered in ribosomes, and ribosomes we're going to get to in just a few minutes. It'll be one of the other organelles. Ribosomes help to make proteins, and so these actually make proteins, and since those make proteins, they're attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, and you can see here then the endoplasmic reticulum makes proteins. So that should help you to remember. If in this picture, it's really hard to tell on here, but they're going to have these like little pancake looking kind of lines here, and the key is that they have dots all over them. And those are the ribosomes. You'll be able to see them better in the picture that you have that you'll color. The next one is smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And these help to make fats, metabolize carbohydrates. That means metabolize, break them down, and helps to detoxify things. So it will help to break down toxic stuff. Now, there's a lot of random things that could be toxic that you take in. Some could be on purpose and some not on purpose. So some things you might just be exposed to a chemical that you don't even realize you're exposed to. Maybe putting certain lotions on or things like that might have a chemical that your body doesn't really need and would consider toxic. And so the smooth endoplasmic reticulum of the cells will help to break that down and get rid of it. So we might find a lot of smooth endoplasmic reticulum in organs where we need to actually break down toxins, like the liver, which will help to break down things that you take into your body or kind of absorb some of those toxins and helps to break it down. Okay, next we have ribosomes, which we had just mentioned, and their whole goal is to make proteins. Now, ribosomes we are going to talk about a lot in Chapter 10. They are used in this whole process of making proteins. So we will talk about it a lot in future chapters. These are attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, or they could just be hanging out in the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is kind of this jelly stuff inside of the cell, and it kind of holds things in place. It's kind of like a jello mold or something, and it kind of holds stuff in place. So those ribosomes don't have to be attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, but they can be. Ribosomes are made in the nucleus, and they are completed in the cytoplasm. Okay, the Golgi apparatus. Their function is to manufacture, warehouse, sort, and ship materials out of the cell. The idea is that this is similar to a post office. So it helps to manufacture things, it helps to warehouse them, it helps to store stuff, and then in the end, it'll send out these little vesicles that ship things out of the cell. So along here, it's making stuff, it might be warehousing, like here it might be storing a whole bunch of things that need to be stored, kind of like little bookshelves, and it's storing stuff. And eventually, when things are ready to be exported out of the cell, it'll make these little vesicles that end up getting sent out to be used by the rest of the body. Lysosomes, they digest macromolecules. If we need to bring that up again, macromolecules are carbs, proteins, and fats that we just talked about last chapter. So they help to break them down or digest them, and that's their main goal. They kind of hang out in the cytoplasm. They're not attached to anything. They're just these little like circles. That's all it looks like on there in the cell, and they help to break down macromolecules. They will also help to break down dead cells. So you have cells in your body that are dying all the time, and new cells are being made. So some of those old dead cells and the material from them will get absorbed by the lysosome to be broken down or digested. Okay, peroxisomes look very similar to lysosomes. They have a different function. They break down fatty acids, and so those are the monomers of fats. And these are found in significant number in liver cells because they help to detoxify or they break down these fatty acids. Next, we have the cytoskeleton, which functions as a support system of the cell. Just like it sounds, cyto right here means cell. So it is the skeleton of the cell, and it just kind of helps to keep the cell shape. It doesn't make it rigid, it just helps to keep the shape somewhat so that it doesn't collapse in on itself. There's three main structures in here: microtubules, microfilaments, and intermediate filaments. You don't really have to know the difference between them, but you might see different ones labeled in a cell picture. Okay, next is the cytoplasm. Its function is to hold the organelles in the cell, so it's kind of like this jelly substance or jello mold. And the key part is that this is where all chemical reactions take place in the cell. So any type of chemical reaction like we talked about last chapter, hydrolysis or maybe condensation reaction, those kinds of things are going to happen in the cytoplasm of the cell. Okay, next we have cilia and flagella, and these are on the outsides of the cell. The cilia are small little hairs, and this is an example of cilia. We can see lots of little hairs all around this paramecium. And then flagella are longer tails, both of which help with locomotion or movement. So flagella help the cell to move, and movement of materials around the cell is cilia. I guess they both kind of function in the same way, but paramecium, like these little hairs here, they help to get things moving around the cell, where flagella are like tails, and they actually project or move that particular cell. The last thing here with cilia and flagella is that they are in animal cells only. Plant cells don't need that ability to move. So you'll only find these in animal cells.